Hi, I'm Angela Williams. Welcome to Voice Up for the Voiceless podcast.
And I'm Krista Marshall, and we are so excited to have you with us today. So, we are going to be interviewing the Children's Center for Hope and Healing today, and we're really excited to be talking to them about their services that they have for those that are experiencing child sexual abuse, as well as just to kind of hear their experiences.
So we'll be interviewing Vicki Schulte and Kara Coates.
Yep.
Hopefully, I got those names
Yep.
correct. So we welcome them in right now. Welcome, Vicki. Welcome,
Hello.
Kara.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Well, we're excited to have you, and we're excited for you to share with our audience just a lot deeper statistics about child sexual abuse and then some of the services that you provide. And hopefully, there'll be some parents listening, and we hope to provide some real valuable prevention tips before we close too.
Yeah.
So, we're going to dive right in.
Okay.
How are you guys doing today?
Good. How about you guys?
Yeah, we're good.
We're doing good.
Doing
We're doing good.
Yeah.
So, talk to us a little bit about the prevalence of child sexual abuse. And I'd just be curious in your experience. And it sounds like you've been doing this work for quite some time, if you're seeing an increase or a decrease.
Yeah. I've been with the Children's Center for about 9 years now, and it seems like our numbers, unfortunately, are steadily increasing over time. I think a really kind of shocking thing for us, too, is it really seems like the severity of the abuse is getting worse over time. So earlier in my career, we would have a lot of single incident trauma. So one incident with a child and an adult. Now we are working with so many children who have either multiple offenders, multiple instances of abuse, violent abuse, even. The landscape with online exploitation is really changing very quickly in terms of the abuse that kids are experiencing. That's not just contact abuse face to face with an offender. The CDC statistics kind of indicate that as many as 1 in 4 girls will experience childhood sexual abuse before their 18th birthday, and as many as 1 in 20 boys by their 18th birthday. There's some statistics out there that indicate as much as 10% of all people experience sexual abuse by the time they turn 18. And so it's one thing to hear numbers. It's different to think about children that we know. So I would dare say all adults listening know at least 10 kids in their lives that they care about, that they love, that they want to protect. And so when we break it down that way and think that, you know, if your child's in school with 25 kids in their classroom, chances are there are children in that room. You know, statistically, 2 of those kids would experience sexual abuse before they graduate high school. And so when we start to put kind of faces with these statistics, it really kind of hammers home this is a real issue in our community.
And we believe that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Vicki.
I was just going to say, we believe that the statistics for males are even higher. There's a stigma of reporting, whether it's a female offender or a male offender. And so we believe the male statistics are even higher. And we know that RAINN reports that every 9 minutes, a report is substantiated through Child Protective Services that a child's been sexually abused. And the thing about that, the key word with that is substantiated. A lot of these go unsubstantiated for all kind of reasons, whether it's non-reporting or not enough evidence or whatever that may be. And so that statistic is even higher, I believe, as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was about to say the veil of silence. So many survivors, especially survivors that I work with, they're in their 30s, 40s, and even 50s and above before they ever disclose. So I think we need to consider too that so many children are silenced in fear and shame. Just
Absolutely. And that's my population as well, Angela. I work mainly with adults and some older teens. The other thing that makes it hard is like 93% we know are known to the child, a trusted adult typically. So that makes it even harder, you know, to report that if it's a trusted family member, a coach.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Kara, just over your 9 years, have you seen an increase in sexual abuse from family members or from others that the child knows outside the family?
Yeah, I think just anecdotally what we're seeing, that's remained pretty consistent, that it is oftentimes someone known, someone trusted. Unfortunately, we work with kids where it's a family member, where it's a parent's boyfriend or girlfriend. We have worked with kids where it has been someone in the church even, coaches, teachers, I mean, you name it. These are people who should be protecting children and keeping them safe. Definitely the increase in the internet related crimes. I was looking at a study. this weekend actually that was sampling for that. A lot of these questionnaire surveys are contact abuse, so hands-on, but looking at the prevalence of exploitation online. And it indicated they had interviewed a couple thousand teenagers, and the number when they considered online abuse went from like 20% to 30%. So it's a big jump with what our kids are experiencing online. And I think our conversations around safety have not kept up with the technology.
No.
No.
Yeah.
And tell us what some of that would look like for a parent that's listening. What would that online abuse, how does that play out?
Yeah, we are seeing there are AI generated apps now that you can upload any picture to the app and it will undress the person. It will create a fake nude image of any person. We're starting to see that. We're seeing a lot of just the exploitation where videos or pictures are sometimes willingly exchanged, but then shared with other people. So we see this a lot with our teens, boyfriend and girlfriend, and there's a breakup, and then these pictures are kind of leaked. And we all know that once it's out there, right? There's no getting it back. There's, it's really hard to, you can't unsee those things when it goes around the whole 7th grade, when it goes around the whole 9th grade. I think that's been particularly shocking for me is how young this is happening. So having these pictures and videos kind of leaked even in 6th and 7th grade. So we're talking 11, 12-year-olds that are having these images circulated around school, around sports teams. We've been in some training recently around sextortion. So even strangers online grooming and targeting children for images, making threats. Then once they obtain the images, it's like, if you don't send us more, we're going to. Interestingly enough, the early research is indicating that that's a little more prevalent in males than females with the online sextortion. So that's really challenging some of our known kind of norms or ideas around what that looks like. And even what education looks like. I think we tend to talk to girls a lot more about these things than we do boys. And so we're really having to change how we approach, the education even.
And social media is such that, when I was growing up, I knew people from my high school, and now these kids are talking to people all over the country, in other countries. And so there is that probability that they may not be talking to who they think they're talking to.
Right. Absolutely.
And so that's also a danger. And we used to think, when I first started working here, I've been here 6 years, if something was passed around the school, that was a big deal. But now we consider that almost contained, because we're hearing about these images ending up in chat rooms and child predators buying those pictures and images. And so it becomes a global thing, not just a thing passed around the school.
Well, I've purposefully not put any of my grandchildren's pictures ever out on social media. How would you advise parents in this world where you could put a picture of your child and it could be through AI undressed and really, like, how do you have those conversations? Like, what does that look like?
It's really hard. When we're talking to parents a lot, we're talking about treating the online space like we treat the real life space. So it's like, if you wouldn't share that with someone that you're sitting across the table from or that you see in Walmart, maybe you don't want to put it on social media. The same thing with talking to people, with privacy settings, with your kids online. Like, you would never let your kid go out, without knowing who they're with and how long they're going to be gone and where they're going. And so kind of really trying to treat the online space like we do the real world in-person space, I think, is a really good filter for decision making in terms of what we're sharing, when we're sharing it, how we're sharing it, and who we're sharing it with.
And I know some of the social media now has the good friends only feature, where you can make sure only your closest friends see those photos. And so as a grandparent, like, I might only select a few people to see pictures of my grandchildren instead of like my whole social media friend.
I'm so technically challenged. I don't even I'm just afraid. But talk to us a little bit about a child advocacy center for those that are listening and may not know that this even exists, what a child advocacy center is, what it does, how the community can access those services.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're really lucky to be closely associated with several child advocacy centers in our area. So our center itself serves 13 counties. In Northeast Georgia is our region, and we work with local CACs or child advocacy centers in those counties. And a child advocacy center is just a child-focused center where children who've experienced abuse, neglect, or even witnessed violence receive coordinated care from a multidisciplinary team. So the idea here is that when a child experiences abuse, when they witness a crime, instead of dragging the child around to all these different places to gather information and to find the support, we bring the child to one central location, and then everybody else comes to them. So the purpose here is to provide culturally, developmentally appropriate care for these children, to simplify the steps for caregivers, and to really get this multidisciplinary team together to kind of rally around the family and offer support. That multidisciplinary team consists of lots of different stakeholders. So it involves people that are conducting the forensic interviews, the medical exams. It often involves child protective services, the district attorney's office, law enforcement, the mental health providers that are serving these populations. Victims advocates, sometimes even schools will send representatives. So the goal here is that the child gets kind of everything they need, and they're the center of that process. And then the long-term goal is that everyone's working together to make sure that the needs of the child and the family are met. So that doesn't end after a disclosure. Those conversations continue for months, sometimes even years. Sometimes prosecution is really slow, and this team is working with the family and talking about how do we serve this child, for a year or 2 years out after the disclosure of abuse. So really lucky in our area, at least, to have some really great active child advocacy centers that are doing wonderful work for the families in our communities.
And I just want to piggyback on that. I think and I'm speaking for our main CAC that we work with, it is a beautiful building. It's child friendly. And the way those interviews are conducted are usually in a playroom type atmosphere or something. So it's very different from the intimidation of walking into a police department. And I think that makes a huge difference for the children and the families. And some of the services that they offer there, of course, they do the forensic interviewing. They also do a lot of the places do the same exams where they have the sexual assault or sexual abuse. Either one's interchangeable nurse examiner. So a lot of them do that there. So they're not in that sterile hospital setting with doctors and nurses coming in and out and asking multiple questions and asking for the story multiple times. They also assess for safety. Is the child going to be safe when they leave here, and things like that. And then they provide resources. And Kara and I are all, we're part of the multidisciplinary team in our area, and we attend a monthly meeting. And that's really helpful because all of those people that Kara was talking about, we all come together once a month and sit around a huge round table and, talk about what's going on. So you're not sending countless emails. Everybody's on the same page. It's really nice to be able to have those relationships.
So can just anybody walk through the door and access services? Or is there something
You
that
wanna
needs
talk
to
about
take
that?
place first?
Yeah.
Yes and no. That's a loaded question. So most child advocacy centers will have family advocates on staff. And so in that regard, yes, anybody can walk in and ask to speak to an advocate and have a conversation about what they're experiencing and figure out what the next steps are. So that's a great resource. When it comes to the forensic interview or the medical exam, those have to be referred either through law enforcement or through child protective services. So once the disclosure is made, that goes to, in Georgia, it's DFACS or CPS in other states, or law enforcement can be reported either place. And then that's what coordinates that process of getting the forensic exam or forensic interview and or medical exam completed. The advocacy services, anyone could call the CAC and say, hey, this is what's going on. What do we need to do? And they will kind of walk you through those steps.
And I'm sure they direct them to calling law enforcement or DFACS.
Of course.
Yes.
And, to put this kind of in scope, in 2024, CAC served over 370,000 children in the United States. So these are robust organizations across state lines, kind of in a national scale that are working. And for each of those child, there's a family attached, right? So it's not just seeing an individual. Right. This is the child plus caregivers, maybe siblings. So really huge impact in our country. And we're lucky to have that model for sure.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's great.
And I'm sure that, as you said, most of the perpetrators are within the family or the extended family. Help me. How do you coach, let's say, a mother who knows this is going on but doesn't want to turn in her father or her husband or her son, or how do you have that conversation? What does that look like?
It's really difficult conversations to have. And,
Mhm.
we have to acknowledge that sometimes that unwillingness is tied to factors that we will never know or understand, right? So there may also be domestic violence taking place. There may be
Financial
financial,
concerns.
financial dependence. There's a host of reasons. We like to default that most people are doing the best that they
Mhm.
can, with what they have.
Cultural reasons. A lot of times people want to keep it in the family.
Mhm.
Sure.
But we work with a lot of kids where those disclosures are coming at school, where
Mhm.
it's another trusted adult, sometimes because they don't know how to talk to their primary caregiver
Mhm.
about it, or sometimes they have talked to the primary caregiver and nothing has changed. And so a lot of times helping kids identify who are all the safe adults in their life. And we're always teaching kids, like, if you tell and they don't believe you, keep telling a grown up
Go to
until
someone
someone
else. Yeah.
listens.
Yeah.
And from our approach with caregivers, we want to try and understand what are those factors that are inhibiting a more protective response of their child. Maybe they need some additional services. Maybe they need some just psychoeducation on what's going on. I think a lot of times it's pure just like disbelief of like, how could this be happening in my home? I just don't understand. And so sometimes just a little bit of education, sharing the statistics, not normalizing as in child sexual abuse should happen, but kind of normalizing and kind of in the fact that when it does, these are common threads.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's really all it takes. A lot of parents just need some additional support. They need someone to step in and say, this is going to be really hard, but like, we're here to help, and you can, you can do it. You can keep your kids safe.
And I think the other thing that we share with parents up front, we are mandated reporters by law. And so we do have to report if a disclosure is made. I will say a lot of the times the children that are coming to us have already been through a forensic interview, so it's been reported. But you will find occasionally there is another disclosure by someone else. It's happened before, and we do have to report that. And we gently we talk to the parents and we let them know we do have to report this because we are mandated reporters by law.
Wow. So can you all tell us a little bit about the Children's Center for Hope and Healing? So we talked about the Child Advocacy Center. We talked about what you all do, but what is the Children's Center for Hope and Healing?
Yeah, we could talk about this all day.
Yeah.
So we are a nonprofit organization. I mentioned earlier, we serve 13 counties in Northeast Georgia. We have a primary office in Gainesville, Georgia. We have satellite offices in Cumming, Georgia, and up in Clarksville in Habersham County. But our primary purpose is to restore dignity, hope, and trust to individuals impacted by childhood sexual abuse. So we are primarily offering counseling services. So that's the bulk of what we are doing. Is trauma-focused therapy for individuals who have experienced sexual abuse. So we see clients as young as 3. And I know that can be hard to wrap your head around. It is difficult when you see a 3-year-old coming down the halls of the office, headed back to the playroom with their therapist. But kids as young as 3. The oldest client I have worked with here is 73. So I had a lady in her 70s that was processing her childhood sexual abuse. So when we talk about those decades of shame that come with, and more trauma, quite frankly, oftentimes additional trauma. So really happy to be able to provide those services. Our counseling services are provided at no cost. So for anyone who's trying to access mental health care in our country knows how cost prohibitive it can be, even with insurance. But anyone
And how many sessions does that account for? Sorry to cut you off.
As many as it takes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not time limited. Most of our kids are here 6 to 8 months for weekly sessions.
Yes.
That involves family counseling when needed. And then we are really lucky to have a Latino victim services program as well. So we have bilingual counselors who are offering those victim services in Spanish for clients who need it. We are also really fortunate. We want to break the cycle of childhood sexual abuse. Our agency was founded 41 years ago in 1984. And not too long into this work, there was this recognition about how prevalent it is with childhood sexual abuse, that it happens with an older and more powerful child. So about a third of the time, this behavior is occurring with older children. And so our agency in 1996 developed a program to work with children and teens who have problematic sexual behavior. So we have a program that works with a lot of mandated clients through the Department of Juvenile Justice, or even just kids who are starting to exhibit some kind of concerning behavior, which is often reactive behavior.
Right.
And so being able to kind of step in and address that and help these families heal, oftentimes help families reunite when they've been divided by this problematic sexual behavior. So that is a real honor to be able to do that work as well, and kind of see the ripple effects of that work with problematic sexual behavior in youth.
And there's been a really cool study. I think it's 80 years of research that that shows that when you address this in childhood, there's a 98% success rate that they will never go on to reoffend. And so we're really proud of that as well. The modalities that we use, Kara talked a little bit about our program, but we are all trained in TFCBT, which is trauma-focused behavioral therapy. That is our main mode of therapy that we use. We have several of us that are trained in EMDR, which is the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. We also use cognitive processing therapy. We have someone being trained in play therapy, and that's what I do my fingers like that. That's what they do with the littles, with the little bitties, is the play therapy. And we have someone that's trained in art therapy. So we hope that we can meet the need for whatever a child needs here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to circle back and I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One, can you explain to our audience what a mandated reporter is?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so the law dictates that there are people who are required by law to report child abuse or neglect when they know about it. So in Georgia, that list is very long. Pretty much it's anyone that works with children. So the law outlines counselors, teachers, nurses, doctors, clergy, coaches, volunteers, child care workers. It's pretty all encompassing, and it is a legal requirement that if you suspect, you don't have to prove it, you don't have to have evidence for it. If you suspect that a child has been abused or neglected, you have to make a report to Department of Family and Children's Services. We don't have to investigate. We simply give the information that is known, and so that it gets turned over to the appropriate authorities.
And they investigate.
And they do the investigating part. So, and you can actually be criminally held responsible if you know about abuse and do not report it. So it's a legal kind of standard
Obligation that we have.
Protecting children.
So tell me a little bit about if a child comes to you and they do the forensic interview, what chance does that child have to get justice and their perpetrator actually serve time?
I'm going to let Kara answer that because she just had a really great conversation with our Hall County DA's office.
Yeah, so we, obviously we want all of these people to go to jail, right? But we're realistic about some of the challenges, and so I don't have statistics in the work that we're doing. I do know our multidisciplinary team works really hard to do everything they can for these kids.
Absolutely.
But we know it can be really difficult to process childhood sexual abuse, prosecute. And the reason, there's often no physical evidence. So there are no bruises, there are no scars, there are no things that can be used as concrete evidence that this happened. Rarely there are witnesses. So it's not like, you witness the crime in a shopping center and there's 10 people that step forward and say, oh my gosh, we saw that. So it's often done in secrecy. And so that can make it really difficult. The age of the child, developmental level, their ability to communicate details. So anyone that's watched court TV or listened to a true crime podcast, right? Like you got to be able to prove beyond a reasonable shadow of a doubt. And if the victim is a 4-year-old, they are developmentally probably not going to be able to give you a lot of details about necessarily the when and the where and the how long that it happened. Sometimes the lack of language, so not being able to identify private parts by their anatomical terms can be a real hindrance. So that can be really difficult.
They don't know what sex is. So how can they communicate what happened?
And then we see a lot of delayed disclosures, like you mentioned, Angela. A lot of people wait a really long time for a lot of reasons that are really valid to make those disclosures. But that does really sometimes inhibit the legal proceedings, sometimes because of the memory of the details, sometimes because we can't even find the alleged offender. I mean, there are a host of reasons. So, and at the end of the day, unfortunately, a lot of times these are a he said, she said, right? Like you have the victim child that's saying this happened, and you have the alleged offender who's saying it absolutely did not. And there's nothing else, right? There's no other evidence. So it can be really challenging. I think the good news is children's healing is not dependent on criminal justice, right?
Yes.
Like that we see day in and day out. We have countless examples of kids where justice at the courthouse doesn't happen for whatever reason, but these kids go on to live very healthy, happy, productive lives. They are still empowered and capable and heard and understood. And I think that's what enables us, to keep doing this work, is that the outcome is independent of what's going on over at the courthouse.
Yes.
I think sometimes that's education with the parent to let them know that we do see amazing healing without knowing that there has been someone prosecuted. And I think once the parent can wrap their head around that, because all they really want is for their kiddo to be okay. Of course we want justice for them in the criminal justice system. That doesn't always happen. But I think once parents understand that their child's healing is the most important thing, they can get on board with that if that doesn't happen for them.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I think that that's one of those things that's so important, is to make sure, like you said before, that that the parents know. I've had kids, unfortunately, my own kids have gone through sexual abuse. And so I'm familiar with the whole process and what that looks like. And I think for me, it was just so important to know, okay, I just need my kids to be okay. I need them to be healed. I need them to be well, and take my eyes off of what the abuser, if they're going to jail or not. So thank you for making sure that that is going to be a staple. Because I was actually going to ask that, like, what do you guys say to the children and or to the parents to help them still have hope? I mean, you guys are named Hope and Healing. So like, how do you help people with that process?
Believing the kid is the biggest thing.
Yep.
I think
Amen.
believing the kid, no matter what the district attorney's office says, no matter what the police say, or no matter what happens, they're like, I believe you. And the more supportive people that can believe the child, the better the outcomes are. We see day in and day out, the more supportive the caregiver, the quicker the kid gets better, 99% of the time. Building up protective factors. So a lot of kids sometimes struggle with the safety piece. Like, if this person is still out there and I may run into them at Walmart, like, how do I be safe? And so building up those protective factors, role playing with kids. Who are your trusted adults? How can you stay safe? So I think there's just a lot of, at the end of the day, they're pretty simple, practical things to do, right? Believe the kid and really work on enhancing that safety with them. That I think goes the longest way.
And I think I had an experience one time where I was working with a law enforcement officer, and there was not going to be enough evidence to prosecute. And he told me, he said, Vicki, I believe her. He said, I believe her, but my hands are tied. I don't have enough. And so I've communicated that several times, just telling kids and parents what that cop said to me that day, because that makes them feel like, oh gosh, they do believe me. They just maybe can't make it happen. And so I think that that's important, that they know that not just we believe them, but the district attorneys believe them, the police believe them. It just comes down to what can the criminal justice system do. And sometimes I believe our criminal justice system here is doing the very best that they can, and they do a great job with that. But sometimes if the evidence isn't there, it's not there.
It's not there.
Yeah. So, can you speak to our parents that may be tuning in today that just are in this place where it's not going to happen to my child? I'm a helicopter parent. This is happening somewhere else, other side of the railroad tracks, poor communities. Maybe it happens in other cultures, but not here, not on my street. Can you speak to that parent and give them some prevention tips today?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the first thing is that it definitely is happening everywhere. All the research plays out. It's not limited by location, socioeconomic status, race. None of those things really matter. And we work with helicopter parents every single day, and as a parent myself of young children, that's probably the hardest part, is you can do all of the things right and still end up in these situations. And so I always try to frame it honestly for myself and for others as I want to be proactive, but not paranoid, right? Like we still want to live our lives. We want to let our kids have the experiences that they deserve. But I want to be proactive about their safety. The same thing with parents. We don't share statistics to like scare you. We share statistics to empower you to think about what kind of safety measures you have in place, what kind of conversations you have in place. So whenever we get to talk to, an audience that has parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, coaches, we've kind of narrowed down 5 tips that we think are really helpful and appropriate that we always talk about. The first one is speak early and speak often. I think a lot of us grew up in a generation where you had the birds and the bees talk one time around puberty. You might have got a book or a pamphlet. But that's just not cutting it anymore. It probably was never good enough, but it's certainly not good enough in our society now with what kids are exposed to. So we know the average age of porn exposure for boys in the United States is 10 years old. So that's elementary school that most boys have been exposed to pornographic content. Never mind what we're seeing just on commercials on TV, what we're experiencing. So we kind of talk about from toddlerhood on, like, how do we talk to kids about bodies, about body safety? We mentioned earlier, but using anatomical terms for private parts so that they can communicate about their bodies in a healthy way. It is just not a one-time conversation. We tend to think about stranger danger, but that's not it. We know that 93% statistic, it's a known offender. And so the don't take candy from strangers just really doesn't cut it. It's not the risk, So just a lot of talk with little kids around body safety, around privacy, around trusted adults. And then as the kid ages, you're tailoring that conversation to their developmental level. So then we might be explaining puberty. We might be explaining reproduction. We might be talking about pornography and things that they see online. We might be talking about healthy relationships online and safety. But the more that we're talking about it, the better. It empowers our kids to make decisions. God forbid something does happen. It gives them the language to discuss it. They know that these adults can handle it. And it really just is a huge safety factor for kids to be well informed.
I think the number 2 is internet safety. We talk a lot about that, and we did talk a little bit about that before, is knowing what your kids are doing online. And we say parent your children online like you would in person. Kara mentioned that earlier. And that means maybe not the phones in the bedrooms at night and stuff like that. If your kids have devices and tablets and with littles, just being very aware. The last statistic we heard is that from kids being on YouTube videos and different things, they're 3 clicks away from pornography. And then the online grooming stuff that we hear about, like I was talking about earlier, where, because I've got teen clients, and instead, they believe they're talking to a 16 or 17-year-old in Tennessee. And I encourage them all the time, FaceTime them. And they're like, well, they're in a different time zone, they said, or they're insecure about their appearance. And I'm like, if they won't FaceTime with you,
they're dangerous.
we need to have some conversations about that. So just the internet safety at every level, from the time they're little all the way up through teens. And I know it gets harder when they're teens, but I do feel like there need to be some rules about where we use our technology and things like that. And just being aware of that grooming happens online a lot. So just having parents be aware of the internet stuff.
So we talked some about listening to children and respecting their body boundaries. So even from a young age, giving them body autonomy. So we've all been at the family get-togethers where it's time to leave and they make the 2-year-old go around and hug every single adult in the room, right? But that's sending a message to the kid, right? That the grown-up's in charge of your body, not you. So when I work with little kids, we use the language you're the boss of your body, right? You're in charge of your body. You get to decide within reason, right? They have to take baths and they have to eat and they have to wear clothes, but who they show physical affection with,
right.
When they do that, what feels comfortable and uncomfortable, if that's starting at 2 and 3 and 4, we're building a really good foundation for some of those assertiveness skills, to speak up for themselves, to not be tricked, to not be bribed, to not be manipulated. And then again, if anything does happen that makes them uncomfortable, they feel confident to express that, right? Like you can't touch me there. Or I don't like the way that feels. I'm going to tell my mommy that you did that. And again, it's a pretty easy thing to do. That's day-to-day life, just as you're with your kids, giving them some choice and some autonomy in that.
And we used to say, like, the term was 8 is great, that's when like these conversations should start. But obviously we think it needs to be way before that. And you can do that age appropriately with even a toddler by talking about your private parts are what your bathing suit covers. And that's really easy to say. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to bring that into their world. But I think that that's pretty easy. You know, your private parts are what a bathing suit covers. And these are the people that, you know, like mommy, the doctor, you know, different things like that. But the other thing we want to talk about is minimizing the opportunity. So there's some ways to minimize opportunity. Number one is having these kind of conversations. And if your kids know it's okay to talk about this, that they're going to be more confident in how they project themselves and the things that they say to people that might approach them, like what Kara was saying. The other thing is like employing a buddy system, teaching your kids to employ the buddy system. Like if the neighbor across the street that's an adult wants your kid to come in and help him find something, the cat under the bed, well then let me go get my mom and she can help us too, or let me get my older sister or my younger, you know. It does happen when other children are present, but the likelihood of it happening with, you know, with 2 or more people, it's less. So we say that. And with my teens, I tell them, like, maybe not get in the car with your coach by yourself, get a friend with you, or if your best friend's dad or mom wants to drive you somewhere to meet someone, maybe have a friend with you. Like we just really like to say, implement that buddy system that cuts risk way down.
Yes.
You know, I did too that all interactions between adults and children should be observable and interruptible.
Yes.
Right. So like whether it's a music lesson, whether it's a tutoring session, like let's have this in a public place. Let's leave the door open. Let's, you know, I've even heard it said, let's pop in and pick up our kid from the babysitter at an unexpected time every now and then. But just not, you know, not leaving kids and adults alone is the biggest thing when we're minimizing opportunity. Interruptible and observable. And then being available. This is just knowing your kids, the kids in your life that you love and care about, being available to talk to them, asking questions just in general about their life, giving kids someone who they know is a safe and trusted adult, who they can talk to about difficult things, because kids are going to experience a lot of really hard things outside of sexual abuse that they need an adult to talk to. And if we can't talk to the grown-ups in our life about my friend being mean at lunch, or losing my favorite pencil at school, or not making the basketball team, then we certainly can't talk to those adults when someone violates our body safety. And so having intentional conversations, spending time with, and this is not parents, right? This is caregivers. This is the people that we're going to church with, that we're doing sports with, that are in our neighborhood, that we're in scouts with. You know, it's an adult's responsibility to protect children. That responsibility never falls on the child. And so the stronger those supports are, the better our community is, right? Not just the kid, but the better our community is. And then obviously, if you were to ever witness or learn of abuse, you want to report it. You know, we always talk about staying calm and listening. It's human nature to ask that barrage of questions, like, tell me everything. That's not helpful, right? I believe you. We're going to figure this out together. I'm so sorry this happened. I don't know exactly what's going to happen next, but I'm going to help you figure it out. Right. I'm going to keep you safe, and then just alerting the proper authority. So law enforcement or child protective services.
Oh my goodness, what great tips. Vicki, Kara, y'all are my heroes. Helping survivors heal, helping to break the silence, being there for a child in the most difficult time of their lives. You guys are doing amazing work, and I just want you to reach around and pat yourself on the back.
Well, thank you.
Y'all are doing amazing work, and thank y'all for coming on. I know you said this is your first podcast. You ladies knocked it out of the park.
Absolutely.
So y'all need to line up some more of these.
Thank y'all so much.
For our audience, most of our viewers are survivors,
Mhm.
and then those that just need to learn more about this issue.
Yeah.
I don't think we can talk about this enough
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it still is very stigmatized and
Yes.
carries a lot of a taboo around it. So thank y'all for having the courage to step up and to spend your life and your career working in this arena. It's
Yes.
very honorable.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having us.
No problem. Well, thank you. And again, thank you so much to our audience for listening today. And we just want to say thank you again so much for the Children's Center for Hope and Healing being a part of our podcast today, as well as thank you, listeners. And we just want to thank all of our sponsors. We want to thank you, Mesmerized Media, for always being there for us and just letting us do our productions here. And we just say thank you again so much. And you have a great day.
Thank you. I'm Angela Williams.
And I'm Krista Marshall.
Join us again.
See ya.